Olivia Carter clutched her tattered coat tighter as the autumn wind cut through the chain-link fence surrounding Fort Bradley Military Base. At 45, she moved with the calculated precision of someone who had learned to navigate hostile environments undetected, her weathered face and disheveled appearance masking a lifetime of secrets. The military guards at the checkpoint eyed her with suspicion as she approached, her mud-stained boots and frayed backpack telling the story of a woman without a home. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. Ma'am, this is a restricted area, Private Jenson called out, one hand instinctively moving to his sidearm as she approached. You need to turn around now. Olivia didn't flinch at his authoritative tone. She'd faced far worse than young soldiers following protocol. With steady hands that betrayed none of the nervous energy building inside her, she reached into her coat pocket and produced a folded piece of paper. I have an appointment, she said, her voice carrying a quiet authority that momentarily confused the young guard, with Colonel Sarah Westfield, regarding the malfunctioning radar systems in the Eastern Quadrant. Private Jenson exchanged glances with Sergeant Miller, both clearly struggling to reconcile the homeless-appearing woman before them with someone who would have knowledge of classified equipment issues. The contrast was jarring. Technical expertise didn't usually come packaged in frayed clothing and dirt-smudged hands. Identification, Sergeant Miller demanded, extending his hand while maintaining a safe distance, as if her apparent poverty might somehow be contagious. Olivia produced a contractor ID card that had seen better days. The lamination was peeling at the corners, and the photo showed a cleaner, more polished version of the woman standing before them. The name on the card read, Olivia Carter, Technical Specialist. Sergeant Miller studied the ID with growing suspicion. This expired 8 months ago, ma'am. And there's no record of any civilian contractor appointments today. He tapped something into the computer terminal at the checkpoint. Especially not for the Eastern Radar Array. That's classified equipment. Call Colonel Westfield, Olivia replied calmly. She'll confirm my clearance. The guard's suspicion only deepened. An apparent homeless woman with an expired ID claiming knowledge of classified systems and personal connections to a high-ranking officer. Every security protocol they'd been taught was screaming for heightened caution. We're going to need to search your bag, ma'am, Private Jenson announced, gesturing to a metal table nearby. Please step over here and place all your belongings on the surface. Olivia complied without protest. Years of experience had taught her that resistance only escalated situations unnecessarily. She set her weathered backpack on the table and stepped back, her face revealing nothing, as Sergeant Miller began carefully removing its contents. The items emerging from her bag created an increasingly puzzling picture. Advanced signal analysis equipment worth thousands of dollars, carefully wrapped in old T-shirts, hand-drawn schematics of complex electronic systems, a dog-eared notebook filled with calculations and frequency tables, 3 different military-grade encryption devices, and a small toolkit containing precision instruments designed for working with delicate electronic components. Where did you get this equipment? Sergeant Miller demanded, holding up one of the analyzers. This is military-grade technology. Civilians aren't authorized to possess this. I'm a licensed contractor, Olivia replied evenly. That equipment is necessary for the diagnostic work I've been requested to perform. Private Jenson was now on his radio, requesting additional security personnel. Around them, other soldiers and base personnel passing through the checkpoint had begun to notice the unusual interrogation taking place, some slowing their pace to observe the confrontation between the guards and the apparent homeless woman. What's your background exactly, ma'am? Private Jenson asked, his voice carrying a new edge of suspicion. How does someone like you come to possess classified military equipment? Olivia remained silent, her expression unchanged. She'd been questioned by warlords in West Africa, by intelligence officers in Eastern Europe, by men whose very existence was classified. These young soldiers, following procedure and trying to do their jobs correctly, posed no threat to her composure. As Sergeant Miller continued his search, his fingers found a hidden compartment in the backpack's lining, a secret pocket that would have remained undetected had he not been so thorough. From it, he withdrew a small metal object. It was a tarnished silver medallion, no larger than a $50 coin. One side bore the engraved image of an owl with outspread wings. Beneath it, the words Athena Division were inscribed in small, precise lettering. On the reverse side was a simple inscription, OC, Operative 37. Both guards froze, recognition slowly dawning in their eyes. "Where did you get this?" Sergeant Miller whispered, his voice suddenly lacking all of its previous authority. Before Olivia could answer, a commanding voice cut through the tense atmosphere of the checkpoint. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. "That's quite enough, Sergeant." Colonel Sarah Westfield strode toward them, her uniform impeccable, her posture radiating authority. At 53, she carried herself with the confidence of someone accustomed to immediate respect. The guards snapped to attention as she approached. "Ma'am, we were just following protocol," Sergeant Miller explained. "This woman claims—" "I know exactly who she is," Colonel Westfield interrupted, her eyes locked on Olivia. There was a complex mixture of emotions in her gaze: recognition, shock, and something that might have been guilt. For a moment, neither woman spoke. The years stretched between them like a chasm, 15 years since they had last stood face to face. "Operative 37, Colonel Westfield finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. "We thought you were dead." Around them, the checkpoint had gone completely silent. Even the soldiers who had been passing through had stopped to witness the unusual scene unfolding. "Not dead," Olivia replied calmly. "Just forgotten." Colonel Westfield seemed to recover her composure, suddenly aware of the audience they had attracted. "Private Jenson, Sergeant Miller, return Miss Carter's belongings immediately. She has the highest security clearance possible. I'll escort her from here." The guards hurried to comply, carefully repacking the equipment into Olivia's worn backpack. Their earlier suspicion had transformed into something approaching awe as they stole glances at the disheveled woman who apparently warranted such respect from their commanding officer. As they walked away from the checkpoint, Olivia and Colonel Westfield maintained a professional distance, neither speaking until they were well out of earshot of the guards and curious onlookers. 15 years, Olivia," Colonel Westfield finally said. 15 years without a word. We received intelligence that your entire team had been eliminated in Sarajevo. There was DNA evidence, witness accounts. All carefully manufactured, Olivia replied. As per the contingency protocols we ourselves designed. They entered the main administration building, where Colonel Westfield led them to a private elevator that required both retinal and fingerprint verification. As they descended to levels that didn't officially exist on any blueprint of the base, the Colonel's professional facade began to crack. "Why now?" she asked. "After all this time, why come back now? And like this?" She gestured to Olivia's deliberately disheveled appearance. "Because someone is trying to breach your quantum communication network," Olivia stated flatly. "Someone with intimate knowledge of Athena Division protocols. Someone who knows exactly how to exploit the weaknesses we built into the system." The elevator doors opened to reveal a pristine corridor of white walls and recessed lighting. Security cameras tracked their movement as they walked toward a reinforced door at the end of the hallway. "That's impossible," Colonel Westfield responded. "The quantum network is impenetrable. It's been tested against every known form of cyber attack." "Not against the backdoor protocols we designed," Olivia countered. "Not against the contingency access points that only 5 people in the world knew existed." The colonel stopped walking, turning to face Olivia directly. 5 people. The Athena Division Command Team. "Exactly," Olivia confirmed. "And 3 of us are confirmed dead. That leaves you, me, and 1 other. Marcus Bennett," Colonel Westfield whispered. "But he's been working as our security consultant for the past 10 years. He's overseen every upgrade to our systems, which would give him perfect cover to install whatever he wanted without raising suspicion," Olivia pointed out. "I've been tracking unusual signal patterns for months. Someone is preparing for a massive breach of your quantum network. When that happens, every piece of classified information, every covert operative identity, every black site location will be compromised." They reached the reinforced door, where Colonel Westfield entered a complex security code. The door slid open to reveal a command center humming with activity. Dozens of technicians monitored wall-sized screens displaying data flows, satellite imagery, and security protocols. At their entrance, the room didn't fall silent. These were professionals too disciplined to react visibly, but Olivia could feel the subtle shift in attention, the sidelong glances, the whispered questions. Colonel Westfield led Olivia to a private office adjacent to the main command floor. Once inside, with the door sealed behind them, she slumped into her chair, suddenly looking every one of her 53 years. "We mourned you," she said quietly. "All of you." There was a memorial service. "Your name is on a wall that no one is allowed to see, in a building that doesn't officially exist." "That was the point," Olivia replied, finally allowing herself to sit down across from her former commander. Athena Division was compromised. Someone had leaked information about our Sarajevo operation. The team made a decision: disappear completely, live in the shadows, and find the traitor. 15 years is a long time to hunt a ghost. Olivia's expression remained impassive. "We had to be certain. We couldn't risk being wrong." Colonel Westfield studied her former operative carefully. Behind the deliberately unkempt appearance, behind the facade of homelessness, she could still see the brilliant strategist who had once been the heart of Athena Division's tactical operations. "And now you're certain?" she asked. "Now I'm certain," Olivia confirmed, "and I need access to your systems to prove it." The colonel's finger hovered over the intercom button. "I should call security. Protocol demands I detain you for questioning. You've been officially dead for 15 years, Olivia. Your clearances were revoked. Your identity was struck from every database. And yet here I am," Olivia said simply, "because something more important than protocol is at stake. You know me, Sarah. You know what I sacrificed for this country. If I'm here, it's because the threat is real." The tension in the room was palpable as Colonel Westfield wrestled with 15 years of military discipline against the trust she had once placed in one of her most valued operatives. Finally, she sighed and moved her hand away from the intercom. "What do you need?" "A small team of your best technical personnel, unrestricted access to the quantum network architecture, and 48 hours without Marcus Bennett knowing I'm here." Colonel Westfield nodded slowly. "I can give you that, but I want to be clear. If this is some kind of personal vendetta, if you're wrong about Bennett, then you can throw me in whatever black site prison you choose," Olivia finished for her. "I've been living as a ghost for 15 years. Official detention would be an upgrade in accommodations." For the first time, a hint of a smile crossed the colonel's face. "Your sense of humor hasn't improved. Not much opportunity for comedy in my line of work." Colonel Westfield pressed a button on her desk. "Lieutenant Reynolds, assemble Special Technical Team Alpha and clear Lab 7. Authorization Westfield Omega 937. No records. No logs." She released the button and looked back at Olivia. "I'll have someone bring you more suitable attire." "This appearance has kept me alive for years," Olivia replied, "but I won't object to a shower." As Colonel Westfield led her back into the corridor toward a private suite used for visiting officials, Olivia couldn't help but think about the journey that had brought her back to this place. 15 years of moving through the shadows, of temporary identities and constant vigilance, of hunting a traitor while trying to stay invisible to both allies and enemies. "Does anyone else from the old days still work here?" she asked as they walked. "Major Lewis runs our training division now. Captain Reynolds, Lieutenant Reynolds back then, heads our technical division. They both think you died a hero." "Better to be remembered that way than as what I became," Olivia said quietly. "And what did you become, Olivia?" She paused before answering, choosing her words carefully. "Someone who learned that sometimes the hardest part of serving your country is doing so when your country doesn't know you exist anymore." 3 hours later, showered and dressed in standard-issue tactical gear, Olivia stood before a team of 5 technical specialists in the sealed environment of Lab 7. Gone was any trace of the homeless woman who had approached the checkpoint that morning. In her place stood a commanding presence that held the attention of everyone in the room. "My name is Olivia Carter," she began, not bothering with ranks or pleasantries. 15 years ago, I was part of a specialized unit called Athena Division. Our job was to create impenetrable communication systems, and then figure out how to penetrate them. We built the foundation of what you now call the quantum network." She activated a holographic display in the center of the lab, showing complex schematics of data architecture. "What none of you know, what no one outside Athena was ever supposed to know, is that we build backdoor access into every system. Emergency protocols that would allow authorized operatives to bypass security in crisis situations. The technical team exchanged worried glances. Those backdoors were encrypted with keys divided among 5 people, Olivia continued. A security measure to ensure that no single person could compromise the network. But someone has been piecing those keys together, exploiting vulnerabilities in a system they helped create. Lieutenant Jessica Reynolds, head of the technical team, stepped forward. She was in her early 40s now, with streaks of gray in her dark hair, but Olivia recognized her immediately as the promising young officer who had worked peripheral support for Athena Division years ago. With respect, Lieutenant Reynolds said, the quantum network has been completely rebuilt 3 times since Athena Division was disbanded. Any backdoors would have been eliminated in those upgrades. Olivia gave her a knowing look. Unless someone involved in those upgrades deliberately preserved them. Someone like Marcus Bennett, who has overseen every security protocol implementation for the past decade. The revelation sent a ripple of tension through the room. What I need from your team, Olivia continued, is access to the core architecture without triggering any automated alerts. I need to track unusual data patterns, identify the backdoor protocols that shouldn't exist anymore, and set a trap for whoever is exploiting them. For the next 12 hours, Olivia worked alongside the technical team, her fingers flying across keyboards, her mind processing complex encryption patterns with a speed that left even the most experienced specialists struggling to keep up. She had spent 15 years in the wilderness, but her skills had not diminished. If anything, the constant need to stay ahead of those hunting her had sharpened them. As the team worked through the night, patterns began to emerge, subtle inconsistencies in the security protocols, minuscule delays in authentication sequences, tiny fragments of code that didn't match the surrounding architecture. To the untrained eye, they were invisible. To Olivia, they were like blazing signals in the darkness. There, she said, pointing to a section of code displayed on the main screen. That authentication bypass, it's an Athena signature, specifically Marcus Bennett's work. I'd recognize his coding style anywhere. Lieutenant Reynolds leaned closer to examine the code. It's brilliant, she admitted reluctantly. Hiding in plain sight. Disguised as a standard security protocol, no one would ever notice unless they knew exactly what to look for. And now we know what we're looking for, Olivia replied. I need access to the logs of every time this protocol has been activated in the past year. The data they uncovered was disturbing. The hidden back door had been accessed 73 times in the past 6 months, each time extracting small packets of classified information. Never enough to trigger security alerts, but cumulatively representing a massive intelligence breach. He's been patient, Olivia observed, taking small bites, staying under the radar. But the pattern is accelerating. These last 3 weeks show more activity than the previous 5 months combined. He's building towards something, Lieutenant Reynolds concluded. Yes, Olivia agreed. And I think I know what it is. She pulled up a calendar on her tablet. 2 days from now, Fort Bradley will host the annual Quantum Security Summit. Every major military intelligence director will be here, along with representatives from allied nations. The entire quantum network will be operating at maximum capacity to showcase its capabilities. The implication was clear to everyone in the room. A breach during the summit would be catastrophic, compromising not just U.S. intelligence, but the secure communications of multiple allied nations. We need to take this to Colonel Westfield immediately, Lieutenant Reynolds urged. Not yet, Olivia countered. Bennett has allies within the command structure. People who don't know they're helping him, but who trust his judgment implicitly. If we move too soon, he'll know we're on to him and accelerate his timeline. We need to catch him in the act. She turned to address the entire team. What we need now is to create a honeypot, a section of the network that appears to contain high-value intelligence but is actually a trap. When he accesses it, we'll have irrefutable evidence, and we'll be able to trace his physical location. For the next 12 hours, they worked to construct the perfect bait, a seemingly vulnerable section of the quantum network containing what appeared to be the complete roster of deep-cover operatives in Eastern Europe. In reality, it was an elaborate fiction, populated with convincing but fabricated identities. More importantly, it was rigged with undetectable tracking protocols that would activate the moment anyone accessed it through unauthorized channels. As they were finalizing the trap, the lab door slid open and Colonel Westfield entered. She looked tired but resolute. "Update," she demanded simply. Olivia straightened from her workstation. "We've confirmed that the quantum network has been compromised through backdoor protocols originally designed by Athena Division. We've identified 73 separate intrusions over the past 6 months, with increasing frequency in recent weeks." "Bennett?" "The code's signature matches his work exactly. We've prepared a trap to catch him in the act and trace his physical location." Colonel Westfield nodded slowly, processing the information. "He's due to arrive tomorrow morning for pre-summit security briefings. Over 24 generals and intelligence directors will be on base by tomorrow evening." "Perfect timing for whatever he's planning," Olivia observed. "We need to let him believe everything is proceeding normally. If he suspects we're onto him, he could trigger a catastrophic breach as a scorched earth tactic." "Agreed," the colonel replied. "But I want security measures in place to contain him when you spring your trap. I'm activating a special response team off the books. They'll be standing by but will have no knowledge of the specific threat, only that they're to respond to my direct command." As Colonel Westfield turned to leave, she paused at the door. "Olivia, if you're wrong about this—" "I'm not wrong," Olivia stated with absolute certainty. "I've spent 15 years hunting this ghost. I know his methods better than anyone alive." "And if you're right," the colonel continued, "what happens after? Do you disappear again? Go back to living as a ghost?" Olivia had no answer to that question. For 15 years, her existence had been defined by a single purpose. What came after had never been part of her calculations. "Let's catch a traitor first," she said finally. "Then we can worry about my retirement plans." After Colonel Westfield left, Olivia turned back to the technical team, who had been pretending not to listen to the exchange. "Get some rest," she instructed them. 4 hours, rotating shifts. Tomorrow we'll test everything we've prepared." As the team dispersed, Lieutenant Reynolds lingered behind. "It was you, wasn't it?" she asked quietly. 6 years ago, when our field station in Kyrgyzstan was nearly compromised. The mysterious signal that warned us minutes before the attack. That was you." Olivia neither confirmed nor denied it. "Athena operatives look after their own, Lieutenant, even when we're ghosts." "How many times have you saved us without anyone knowing?" "Not enough," Olivia replied, a rare hint of emotion cracking through her professional facade. "Never enough." Left alone in the lab, Olivia finally allowed herself a moment of vulnerability. She sank into a chair, suddenly feeling every day of her 45 years, every scar from missions that never officially happened, every loss that she had never been allowed to mourn properly. 15 years of living in the shadows, moving from one temporary identity to another, never staying in one place long enough to form connections. 15 years of watching from a distance as the world moved on without her, as her former colleagues received promotions and commendations, as the country she had sacrificed everything for continued in blissful ignorance of her service. But tomorrow would change everything. Tomorrow the ghost would step fully into the light, and the reckoning that had been 15 years in the making would finally come to pass. Dawn broke over Fort Bradley as Olivia Carter stood at the window of the secure lab, watching the base come to life. The technical team had worked through the night in rotating shifts, finalizing their trap while maintaining normal network operations to avoid raising suspicion. Lieutenant Reynolds approached, offering a cup of coffee. "Satellite reports confirm Bennett's plane landed 30 minutes ago," she said quietly. "He's cleared security and is heading to the command center for pre-summit briefings." Olivia accepted the coffee with a nod of thanks. "Perfect. Let him get comfortable. Let him believe everything is proceeding as he planned." The lab door slid open, and Colonel Westfield entered, followed by a tall, distinguished man in his early 50s. Olivia immediately recognized Major Thomas Lewis, despite the 15 years that had passed since she'd last seen him. His hair had gone completely gray, and new lines had etched themselves into his face, but his piercing blue eyes were unchanged, still radiating the same intelligence and quiet strength she remembered. "Major Lewis has been briefed on the situation," Colonel Westfield explained. "I need someone else from the old days who can verify your identity and claims if this goes south." Major Lewis stared at Olivia, shock and disbelief plainly visible on his face. "Carter," he whispered. "Is it really you?" "Hello, Major," Olivia replied evenly. "You've moved up in the world. And you've been dead for 15 years. he countered, still struggling to process her presence. I attended your memorial service. I wrote letters to your family. I have no family, Olivia reminded him gently. That was part of why I was selected for Athena in the first place. No attachments. No one to miss me if I disappeared. Major Lewis turned to Colonel Westfield. Sarah, if this is really Olivia Carter, if Athena operatives have been alive all this time, then a lot of what we thought we knew was wrong, the colonel finished for him. I verified her identity, Thomas. Multiple confirmation protocols. This is definitely Operative 37. The major took a step closer to Olivia, studying her face. Why now? After all this time, why come back now? Because Marcus Bennett is planning to breach the quantum network during the summit, Olivia explained, turning to the main display screen. He's been exploiting backdoor protocols that Athena Division built 15 years ago, protocols that should have been eliminated in subsequent upgrades but were carefully preserved. Major Lewis's expression hardened at the accusation. Bennett has been our head of security for a decade. He's implemented cutting-edge protections that have kept us safe from countless attacks, while simultaneously creating vulnerabilities that only he could exploit, Olivia countered. Show him, Lieutenant. Lieutenant Reynolds pulled up the code segments they had identified overnight, highlighting the subtle but unmistakable patterns that matched Bennett's programming style. These access points don't match any authorized security protocols, she explained to Major Lewis. They're disguised to look like standard authentication gateways, but they bypass all normal security measures, and they've been accessed 73 times in the past 6 months, Olivia added. Small extractions, carefully timed to avoid detection, but the pattern is accelerating. Something big is coming. Major Lewis studied the evidence, his military training warring with 15 years of trust in a colleague. If you're right about this, it's the biggest intelligence breach since the Cold War. I'm right, Olivia stated with absolute certainty. And we've prepared a trap to catch him in the act. She walked Major Lewis through their plan. The honeypot data, the tracking protocols, the special response team standing by. As she spoke, she could see his initial skepticism gradually giving way to grim acceptance. I knew Marcus before Athena, he said quietly when she had finished. We served together in Army intelligence. He was brilliant, dedicated. What would make him turn against everything he once stood for? The same thing that happens to many deep cover operatives, Olivia replied. The lines blur. The sense of self erodes. When Athena was disbanded, when we were all officially declared dead, some of us lost more than our identities. We lost our purpose. Colonel Westfield's secure phone buzzed. She checked the message and looked up grimly. Bennett is requesting access to the quantum network core for final security verification before the summit. Standard protocol, but perfect timing for his purposes. And for ours, Olivia noted. Grant him access. Let the trap be sprung. The next 2 hours were a masterclass in patience and precision. Olivia monitored network activity from the secure lab, while Bennett conducted his security verification in the main command center. To anyone observing, it appeared to be standard pre-summit procedure, a thorough check of all systems before the arrival of high-ranking officials. Only Olivia, watching the subtle data patterns flowing across her screen, could see what was really happening. Bennett was inserting the final pieces of his infiltration program, preparing for a massive data extraction that would coincide with the summit's peak activity. There, she said suddenly, pointing to a flashing indicator on her screen. He's accessed the honeypot. Lieutenant Reynolds confirmed the breach. Tracking protocols activated. We're following his digital footprint in real time. On the main display, a complex web of connections appeared, showing how Bennett's infiltration program was moving through the quantum network. It was brilliant in its design, a distributed system that bounced through dozens of legitimate security nodes to mask its true purpose. He's good, Olivia admitted, a hint of professional respect in her voice. This is more sophisticated than I expected. Can you stop it? Colonel Westfield asked tensely. I don't want to stop it yet, Olivia replied. I want to let it run long enough to gather irrefutable evidence, and I want to see where the data is being sent. For 30 tense minutes, They watched as Bennett's program methodically harvested what it believed was highly classified intelligence on deep-cover operatives. In reality, it was collecting elaborately constructed fiction, convincing enough to appear authentic, but containing no actual sensitive information. The data is being routed to an external server, Lieutenant Reynolds reported, studying the tracking data. Commercial hosting service, but with heavy encryption. He's bouncing it through multiple proxy servers across 6 countries. Can you get a final destination? Olivia asked. Working on it, the lieutenant replied, her fingers flying across the keyboard. He's using state-of-the-art obfuscation techniques, but our tracking protocols are embedded in the data itself. They'll follow it all the way to its final destination. Suddenly, alarms began blaring throughout the lab. Red warning indicators flashed across every screen. What's happening? Colonel Westfield demanded. He's detected the trap, Olivia realized, immediately shifting to a different terminal. He's launching a countermeasure, a system-wide purge to erase his tracks and potentially cripple the entire network. Her hands moved with incredible speed, typing commands faster than most people could follow. Lieutenant, initiate Protocol Omega. Lock down the core systems before his purge program can reach them. Protocol Omega activated, Lieutenant Reynolds confirmed, working alongside her. Core systems isolating now. For several minutes, the lab was filled with the sound of urgent typing and tense verbal exchanges as Olivia and the technical team fought to contain Bennett's countermeasure. It was a digital battle of the highest order, 2 Athena-trained operatives deploying tactics and counter-tactics developed in the same classified program, each anticipating the other's moves like chess grandmasters. I've isolated the purge program, Olivia announced finally, containing it in a quarantine sector. But Bennett will know we're on to him now. Colonel, you need to secure him physically before he can leave the base. Colonel Westfield was already on her secure line. Special Response Team, this is Westfield. Priority Alpha. Detain Marcus Bennett. Consider him armed and extremely dangerous. The response came back almost immediately. Colonel, Bennett left the command center 10 minutes ago. He told the duty officer he was going to check the perimeter security before the VIPs arrive. Find him, Colonel Westfield ordered. Full base lockdown. No one in or out. Olivia was already moving toward the door. He'll have a contingency plan. An escape route prepared long in advance. I know how he thinks. You're not field authorized, the colonel protested. My team will handle this. Your team doesn't know what they're dealing with, Olivia replied, not slowing her pace. I do. Major Lewis stepped forward. I'm going with her. 2 Athena veterans have a better chance than a standard response team. Colonel Westfield hesitated only briefly before nodding. Go. But maintain communication at all times. As they rushed from the lab, Major Lewis handed Olivia a sidearm. Still remember how to use one of these? Some skills you never forget, she replied, checking the weapon with practiced efficiency. They moved through the base with swift purpose, ignoring the curious glances from personnel responding to the sudden lockdown. Years might have passed since they had worked together, but they fell naturally into the silent communication patterns of experienced operatives, covering angles, clearing corners, anticipating each other's movements. If you were Bennett, where would you go? Major Lewis asked as they approached the command center where Bennett had last been seen. He'll avoid main exits, Olivia reasoned. Too obvious. Too easily monitored. He'll use infrastructure, maintenance tunnels, utility conduits, something beneath the notice of standard security. She paused, thinking like her former teammate. The water treatment facility. It's on the perimeter, minimally staffed, and has drainage access that leads off base. Major Lewis immediately changed direction, leading them down a utility corridor that would provide the most direct route to the water treatment plant. As they moved, Olivia's earpiece crackled with Lieutenant Reynolds' voice. We've traced the data transmission, she reported. Final destination is a server in Singapore, registered to a shell company that we're still tracing. But there's something else. We've detected a secondary program embedded in Bennett's infiltration code. It's not just stealing data. "What is it designed to do?" Olivia asked, not breaking stride. "It looks like a systematic corruption protocol," Lieutenant Reynolds replied, concern evident in her voice. "Once activated, it would progressively destroy data integrity across the entire quantum network, not just at Fort Bradley, but at every connected installation worldwide." The implications were staggering. Not just an intelligence theft, but a deliberate crippling of military communication capabilities on a global scale. This isn't just about selling secrets, Olivia realized. This is sabotage on a strategic level. Making someone else a lot of money in the process, Major Lewis added grimly. Defense contractors would make billions rebuilding the compromised systems. They reached the perimeter road that led to the water treatment facility, a low utilitarian building surrounded by chain-link fence and monitoring equipment. From their position, they could see a lone figure moving quickly toward one of the drainage outlets. "Bennett," Major Lewis confirmed, raising a pair of compact binoculars. "He's carrying a backpack and what looks like specialized equipment. He'll have the transmission codes with him," Olivia noted. "The final activation sequence for his corruption program. We need to take him alive if possible." They approached using cover from maintenance vehicles and equipment sheds, staying out of Bennett's line of sight. As they drew closer, Olivia studied her former teammate, a man she had once trusted with her life during covert operations across 3 continents. Marcus Bennett had aged well, his tall frame still carrying the physical conditioning of a field operative despite years behind a desk. His movements were precise and economical as he worked to open an access panel on the drainage outlet, the movements of someone who had planned this escape route meticulously. "I'll take point," Olivia whispered to Major Lewis. "He knows me. That might give us an advantage, or at least a moment of hesitation." "Or he might shoot you on sight," Major Lewis countered. "We go together." Standard Athena containment protocol. Olivia nodded, appreciating that despite 15 years he still remembered their training. They separated, moving to create a crossfire position that would leave Bennett no clean escape route. When they were in position, Major Lewis gave the signal, and they both emerged from cover simultaneously, weapons trained on Bennett. "It's over, Marcus," Olivia called out, her voice carrying across the open space between them. Bennett froze, then slowly turned to face them. For a moment, his expression registered pure shock at seeing Olivia, a ghost from his past, a colleague he had believed dead for 15 years. Then his features settled into a cold mask of calculation. "Operative 37, he said, his voice betraying no emotion. "The elusive Olivia Carter. I wondered if you were still alive." "Step away from the panel, and put your hands where I can see them," Major Lewis ordered, moving to the right to maintain their tactical advantage. Bennett made no move to comply. Thomas Lewis. "Still following orders without question, I see. Some things never change." "The corruption program won't work," Olivia told him, taking a careful step forward. "We've isolated the core systems. Your infiltration has been contained." A flicker of annoyance crossed Bennett's face, but he recovered quickly. "A minor setback. There are other ways to accomplish the same goal." "Why, Marcus?" Major Lewis demanded. "You were Athena. You were one of the best we had. What happened to the man who served his country with honor?" "Honor?" Bennett's laugh was bitter. "Where was the honor when they declared us dead for political convenience? Where was the honor when they erased our service records, our identities, our very existence? They used us until we became inconvenient, then discarded us like broken tools." "We all lost everything," Olivia countered, maintaining her aim despite the emotional weight of the confrontation. "But the rest of us didn't betray our oaths." "The rest of you became ghosts," Bennett shot back, "living in shadows, clinging to outdated loyalties. I chose to rebuild my life on my terms, to take back what was stolen from me." "By selling out your country?" Major Lewis asked incredulously. "By compromising the security of every military installation connected to the quantum network?" Bennett's expression hardened. "My country abandoned me first, Major. Everything that's happening now is simply the consequence of that decision." As he spoke, Bennett's hand moved subtly toward his jacket pocket. Olivia noticed the movement immediately. "Don't," she warned sharply. "Whatever you're reaching for, it's not worth dying for." "That's where you're wrong, Olivia," Bennett replied, his voice suddenly calm. "Some things are absolutely worth dying for. The question is what you're willing to kill for." His hand continued its movement, deliberately provocative. Both Olivia and Major Lewis tightened their grips on their weapons, but neither fired, their training and experience making them hesitant to shoot a former teammate without absolute necessity. In that moment of hesitation, Bennett made his move. His hand emerged with not a weapon, but a small, remote detonator. Before either of them could react, he pressed the button. The explosion came not from Bennett, but from somewhere inside the main base complex. A distant boom followed by the wail of emergency sirens. "Just a small distraction," Bennett explained calmly over the chaos. "Nothing lethal, just enough to divide your resources and create confusion." Even as he spoke, their earpieces filled with urgent communications. Reports of an explosion at the base's power distribution center, emergency protocols being activated, security teams being redirected. "You've thought of everything, haven't you?" Olivia said, not lowering her weapon despite the temptation to check on the situation at the main base. "That's what Athena trained us to do," Bennett replied. "To anticipate every contingency, to prepare for every scenario. You should appreciate the thoroughness, Olivia. You were always the best strategic thinker among us." "And you were always too clever for your own good," she countered. "This isn't going to end the way you planned, Marcus." Bennett studied her for a moment, as if truly seeing her for the first time since their confrontation began. 15 years living as a ghost, and yet here you are, still the loyal soldier, still fighting for a system that erased you. What did that cost you, Olivia? What remains of the woman I once knew? "Enough to stop you," she replied simply. Bennett's hand moved again, this time unmistakably reaching for a concealed weapon. Major Lewis shouted a warning, but Olivia was already moving, closing the distance between them with a speed that belied her years in the wilderness. Before Bennett could draw his weapon, Olivia crashed into him, driving him backward against the drainage outlet. The impact sent them both sprawling, Bennett's backpack and equipment scattering across the concrete. Bennett recovered quickly, rolling to his feet with the fluid grace of someone who had maintained his operative training despite years behind a desk. He came up in a fighting stance, a cold smile on his face. "Just like old times," he said, circling slowly. "Remember our training sessions. You never could beat me in hand-to-hand." "People change," Olivia replied, matching his movements, keeping herself between Bennett and his fallen equipment. Major Lewis had moved to secure the scattered gear, his weapon still trained on Bennett. "Stand down, Marcus. There's nowhere to go." Bennett ignored him, his focus entirely on Olivia. "What happened to you out there, Operative 37? Where have you been all these years while I was rebuilding the security systems you're now so desperate to protect?" "Watching," Olivia answered simply. "Learning. Making sure people like you couldn't undo everything we sacrificed for." Bennett lunged forward without warning, a blur of precise movement honed by years of Athena division training. His first strike, aimed at Olivia's throat, missed by millimeters as she swayed backward, countering with a swift jab to his solar plexus. The impact was enough to disrupt his breathing, but not enough to stop him. "You've kept up your training," Bennett observed, circling again. "Impressive for someone living off the grid." "Necessity is an excellent motivator," Olivia replied, her focus absolute as she analyzed his movement patterns, recognizing the familiar Athena combat style, but noting the subtle variations he had developed over the years. Major Lewis kept his weapon trained on Bennett, looking for a clean shot that wouldn't endanger Olivia. "This doesn't have to end in violence, Marcus. Surrender now and cooperate. There might still be a path forward." Bennett's laugh was cold. "Always the optimist, Thomas. Some betrayals can't be forgiven. Some lines can't be uncrossed." He attacked again, this time with a complex combination of strikes that would have overwhelmed a lesser opponent. But Olivia had spent 15 years surviving in environments where a single mistake meant death. She countered each blow, her movements economical and precise, waiting for the opening she knew would eventually come. It arrived when Bennett overextended slightly on a roundhouse kick. Olivia trapped his leg, twisted sharply, and used his momentum to drive him to the ground. Before he could recover, she had his arm locked behind his back, her knee pressing firmly between his shoulder blades. "It's over, Marcus," she said, her breathing only slightly elevated, despite the intensity of the fight. "Whatever you were planning, whatever you hoped to accomplish, it ends here." For a moment, Bennett continued struggling against her hold. Then, unexpectedly, he relaxed, almost as if accepting defeat. "Maybe you're right," he said, his voice muffled against the concrete. "Maybe it does end here." Something in his tone triggered Olivia's warning instincts. She increased pressure on his arm. "What else do you have planned? What haven't we found yet?" Bennett turned his head just enough to meet her eyes, and the cold calculation she saw there confirmed her fears. "You found the infiltration program. You found the corruption protocol. But Athena always taught us to have 3 layers of contingency, didn't they? You remember the rule. Plan A, Plan B, and the option they never see coming." Before Olivia could respond, the distant wail of the base sirens changed pitch, moving from standard emergency alert to the more urgent tone of a security breach. Her earpiece immediately filled with frantic communications. "All security personnel, we have multiple unauthorized access attempts across the quantum network. Firewall breaches on sectors 7 through 19. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill." Bennett smiled, and there was genuine triumph in his expression. "Right on schedule." Major Lewis pressed his earpiece, listening to the security alerts. "What have you done, Marcus?" "I've created a diversion," Bennett replied calmly. "The explosion, the chase, even my capture. It was all misdirection. While you've been focused on me, my real program has been activating sleeper code installed in the quantum network over the past 3 years. Code that's now systematically dismantling your security protocols." Olivia maintained her hold on Bennett but glanced at Major Lewis. "Contact Colonel Westfield. Tell her to implement complete network isolation protocols. Shut down every connection to the outside world." As Major Lewis relayed the instructions, Bennett continued speaking, his voice carrying an almost philosophical tone. "You know what the irony is, Olivia? I learned this strategy from you. Your famous Ghost Protocol from the Azerbaijan operation create a visible threat to mask the real attack vector. I always admired that plan." Olivia tightened her grip on his arm. "That operation was classified beyond top secret." "How did you—" "I had access to everything," Bennett interrupted. "For 10 years, I have been the architect of this base's security systems. Every file, every record, every buried operation, I've seen it all. Including the real reason Athena Division was disbanded." The statement hung in the air between them, charged with implications that made even Major Lewis pause in his communications. "What are you talking about?" Olivia demanded. Bennett's smile was knowing. "They didn't disband us because of a failed operation, Olivia. They disbanded us because we succeeded too well. Because we created security systems so perfect, so impenetrable, that we became a threat to people who prefer to operate without oversight. People in the highest levels of government who needed back doors for their own purposes." "You're lying," Major Lewis interjected. "I was there. I saw the aftermath of Sarajevo. The operation was compromised. People died." "People died because they were meant to die," Bennett countered. "The compromise wasn't an accident. It was engineered by our own leadership. They needed a justification to shut us down, to declare us dead, to erase everything we had built." Olivia's expression remained impassive, but her mind was racing, reevaluating 15 years of assumptions and conclusions. If that's true, why wait until now? Why spend a decade building new security systems only to tear them down? "Because I needed time," Bennett explained. "Time to gather evidence, to build an ironclad case against the people who betrayed us. The data I've been extracting isn't just military intelligence. It's proof of systematic corruption at the highest levels. Proof that's about to become public." Major Lewis looked skeptical. "You expect us to believe this is some noble whistleblowing operation? That you're compromising national security to expose corruption?" "I expect you to verify it for yourselves," Bennett replied. The evidence is being uploaded to secure servers around the world as we speak. In 24 hours, it releases automatically to major news organizations and transparency groups. The complete, unredacted truth about Athena Division, about Sarajevo, about everything that happened afterward. Olivia studied Bennett's face, searching for deception. In their years together in Athena Division, she had learned to read him better than most. What she saw now was not the calculation of a traitor, but the conviction of someone who believed absolutely in the righteousness of his actions. "You could have come to us," she said quietly. "To me, to Thomas, to others who survived. We could have pursued this together, found a way to expose the truth without compromising active operations." "Could I?" Bennett's voice carried 15 years of bitterness. "You disappeared, Olivia." Became a ghost. The others scattered to the winds. And those who remained inside the system were watched constantly, their communications monitored, their loyalties tested. There was no safe way to make contact. Their conversation was interrupted by Colonel Westfield's voice through Major Lewis's radio. "Thomas, what's your status? Do you have Bennett secured?" Major Lewis hesitated, looking between Bennett and Olivia, uncertainty clear in his expression. "Tell her you have me in custody," Bennett said calmly. "Tell her whatever she wants to hear. But before you hand me over, you need to see the evidence. Both of you. You need to know what really happened to Athena Division." After a moment of tense deliberation, Major Lewis responded to the colonel. "Bennett is secured. No injuries. We're returning to base now." He lowered the radio and addressed Bennett. "You have 5 minutes to show us this evidence. If it's not compelling, if this is another manipulation, I'll personally escort you to the highest security detention facility we have." Olivia cautiously released her hold on Bennett, allowing him to sit up but maintaining a ready stance in case he attempted anything. "Your equipment is over there," she said, gesturing to where his backpack and scattered gear lay. "Move slowly." Bennett nodded and carefully retrieved a small specialized tablet from among his equipment. As he activated it, Olivia positioned herself to see the screen while still keeping Bennett within striking distance if necessary. "This is just a fraction of what I've gathered," Bennett explained, navigating through encrypted files. "The full archive is much more extensive, but these key documents tell the essential story." The first document that appeared was a classified directive dated 3 weeks before the Sarajevo operation. The mission that had officially ended with the entire Athena Division being declared killed in action. The directive, bearing the electronic signature of the then Secretary of Defense, explicitly ordered security protocols to be compromised in a way that would expose the team to hostile forces. "This can't be real," Major Lewis whispered, leaning closer to study the document. "It's real," Bennett assured him. "Complete with verification codes and digital authentication that can be independently verified. And it's just the beginning." He swiped to the next document, a communication between high-level officials discussing the necessary sacrifice of Athena personnel to prevent the full implementation of their quantum security architecture. "They feared what we created," Bennett explained, his voice now carrying an undercurrent of controlled rage. "A truly secure communications network would have eliminated their ability to conduct unauthorized operations, to move money without oversight, to maintain power through manipulation and secrecy." Document after document appeared on the screen, each more damning than the last, evidence of a systematic conspiracy to eliminate Athena Division and bury their breakthrough security protocols. The final piece was a video file showing a closed-door meeting where officials openly discussed the quote, convenient fiction of the team's deaths, and the need to ensure that any survivors remained isolated and discredited. As the video ended, silence fell between the 3 former colleagues. Major Lewis looked physically ill, the foundations of his 15 years of service visibly shaken. "If this is authentic," he began. "It's authentic," Olivia confirmed quietly. Her training in document analysis had been among the best in the intelligence community, and though she had been out of the official system for years, some skills never faded. The verification codes, the digital signatures, the speech patterns in the video, it's all consistent with genuine classified material. Bennett watched their reactions closely. now you understand why I couldn't just file a report or work through official channels. The very people I would have reported to are implicated in this conspiracy. But compromising active military systems, potentially endangering field operatives, there had to be another way, Major Lewis argued, though his conviction seemed weakened by what he had just seen. I designed the infiltration program with safeguards, Bennett explained. No current field operative identities are being compromised. No tactical operations are being disrupted. I'm exposing corruption, not endangering soldiers. Olivia had remained silent, processing not just the evidence, but its implications for the past 15 years of her life. Years spent in isolation, constantly moving, never forming connections, all while believing she was protecting a system that had deliberately betrayed her. "What do you want from us?" she finally asked Bennett. "Time," he replied simply. 24 hours for the full evidence package to be released to the public. After that, I'll surrender to whatever authorities you choose. I'll face whatever consequences come. Major Lewis looked torn, his duty as a military officer warring with his sense of justice. If what you're showing us is true, it represents the biggest betrayal of trust in modern military history. But responding with another betrayal, I don't know if that's the answer. Sometimes the system is too corrupt to reform from within, Bennett argued. Sometimes the truth needs to explode into the light, no matter how uncomfortable that might be. Olivia had been studying Bennett throughout this exchange, evaluating not just his words but the subtle tells in his body language. His micro-expressions, the patterns of his speech. What she saw was not a man seeking personal gain or revenge, but someone driven by a genuine belief in the necessity of his actions, however extreme they might seem. "There's a third option," she said finally. "One that neither buries the truth nor releases it in a way that could destabilize national security." Both men turned to her expectantly. "We take this evidence directly to the Joint Chiefs and the Intelligence Committee chairs," she proposed. "Not the full chain of command, not through official channels, but personally, face to face. They see exactly what we've seen, unfiltered, unredacted. They have 24 hours to begin a formal investigation and issue public acknowledgement of the Athena betrayal. And if they refuse," Bennett challenged, "then your automated release proceeds as planned," Olivia conceded. "But this way the system has one chance to begin healing itself from within before being forced to change from without." Major Lewis nodded slowly, seeing the wisdom in her approach. "It's a compromise that respects both the need for accountability and the potential risks of a complete public disclosure without context." Bennett considered the proposal, his tactical mind visibly working through the implications and possible outcomes. The Joint Chiefs weren't implicated in the original conspiracy, he acknowledged. Most of them were lower-ranking officers at the time. They might be willing to address this rather than have it explode in the public domain. "We'd need to move quickly," Olivia pointed out. "And we'd need Colonel Westfield's cooperation." "Sarah will help once she sees this evidence," Major Lewis stated with conviction. "She values integrity above all else. It's why she's remained at her rank instead of pursuing stars. She refuses to play political games." Bennett still looked hesitant. 15 years, Olivia. 15 years of planning, of gathering evidence, of building toward this moment. You're asking me to trust the very system that betrayed us all. "No," Olivia corrected him. "I'm asking you to trust us, your former teammates, the people who knew you before all of this began. I'm asking you to remember that Athena Division was created to protect this country, not to tear it apart." For a long moment, Bennett remained silent, the weight of the decision visible in his expression. Finally, he extended the tablet toward Olivia. 24 hours, he said. "If there's no formal acknowledgement by then, no public statement, no beginning of an investigation, the automated release proceeds." Olivia accepted the tablet with a nod. "Agreed." Major Lewis contacted Colonel Westfield, his voice carrying the unmistakable tension of their situation. "Colonel, we have Bennett in custody, but there are complications. We need a secure meeting location off the standard grid. This goes beyond standard protocols. The colonel's response was immediate and without question, a testament to the trust built over years of service together. "The old command bunker, level B3. I'll meet you there in 15 minutes. No electronic devices, no recording equipment." As they escorted Bennett back toward the main base, the three former Athena operatives maintained a professional distance, the weight of their shared history and the magnitude of what they had discovered creating a complex emotional landscape between them. "What happens after?" Bennett asked quietly as they approached the bunker entrance. "If this works, if the truth comes out in a controlled way, what happens to us?" To the ghosts of Athena Division? Olivia had been pondering the same question. For 15 years, she had defined herself by her mission, by the need to remain vigilant, to protect from the shadows, to exist without recognition or acknowledgement. The possibility of a different future had never seemed real enough to contemplate. "I don't know," she admitted. "I've been a ghost for so long, I'm not sure I remember how to be anything else." Major Lewis glanced at her with unexpected compassion. "You were more than just an operative, Olivia. Before Athena, before all of this, you were a person with dreams, with plans for a future. Perhaps it's time to reclaim some of that." "Easy for you to say," Bennett interjected without malice. "You maintained your identity, your career, your place in the world. Some of us lost everything." "And some of us chose to disappear," Olivia countered gently. "Different paths, different choices, but we all carried the weight of what happened." They reached the bunker entrance, an unassuming maintenance door that concealed one of the most secure meeting locations on the base. Major Lewis entered his access code, and the heavy door swung open to reveal Colonel Westfield waiting for them, her expression a careful mask of professional neutrality. "I assume there's a very good reason for this unorthodox approach," she said by way of greeting. "There is," Olivia confirmed, holding up Bennett's tablet. "What we're about to show you will change everything you thought you knew about Athena Division, about the past 15 years of military intelligence operations, and about the integrity of the chain of command." The colonel's gaze moved between the three former Athena operatives, assessing the situation with the careful calculation of someone who had navigated political minefields throughout her career. "Before we begin," she said, "I need to be absolutely clear about something. My loyalty is to the Constitution and to the men and women who serve this country, not to any individual, not to any administration, and certainly not to anyone who might have abused their authority. If what you're about to show me represents a betrayal of that trust, I will not hesitate to act, regardless of potential consequences to my career or reputation." It was exactly what they needed to hear, a declaration of principles that transcended rank and political calculation. "Then we're on the same side, Colonel," Olivia replied. "And what happens in the next 24 hours will determine whether the system we've all served still deserves our loyalty." She handed the tablet to Colonel Westfield, who took it with the gravity of someone receiving evidence in a court-martial proceeding. "Start from the beginning," the colonel instructed. "I want to understand everything." As Bennett began explaining the evidence, methodically working through the documentation of betrayal and conspiracy, Olivia found herself watching Colonel Westfield's face, seeing the initial skepticism give way to concern, then to shock, and finally to a controlled anger that spoke of deeply held principles being violated. By the time Bennett finished his presentation, the colonel's expression had settled into grim resolve. She set the tablet down carefully, as if the information it contained might be dangerous to touch. "If even half of this is verified," she said quietly, "it represents the most significant breach of military ethics in my lifetime." "It will be verified," Bennett assured her. "Every document, every video, every piece of evidence has been preserved with complete authentication chains. The people who did this were arrogant enough to document their decisions, believing the evidence would never see the light of day." Colonel Westfield was silent for a long moment, weighing options and implications with the careful deliberation that had characterized her career. Finally, she looked up, her decision made. "Major Lewis, secure a direct line to General Hamilton, Chairman of the Joint Chiefs. Personal authentication only, no intermediaries. Ms. Carter, prepare a concise briefing package from this evidence, something that delivers maximum impact in minimal time. Mr. Bennett, I need verification codes for every piece of documentation, organized by source and date." The swift transition to action mode was characteristic of a commander who had made her decision and was now focused solely on execution. No hesitation, no second-guessing. Just a clear direction that inspired confidence and compliance. "And one more thing," the colonel added, her voice carrying absolute authority. "As of this moment, the three of you are reinstated as active special consultants to military intelligence, with all appropriate clearances and protections. Whatever happens next, you will not face this alone." For Olivia, who had spent 15 years in the wilderness, this simple acknowledgement of her service, this reintegration into the system she had continued to protect, despite its betrayal, represented a profound shift in her reality. She was no longer just a ghost haunting the periphery of military operations. She had stepped back into the light, carrying with her the truth that might finally bring justice for herself and her fallen comrades. 6 hours later, Olivia stood in the shadows of the secure communications room, watching as Colonel Westfield concluded her video conference with the Joint Chiefs of Staff. The meeting had lasted nearly 3 hours, an unprecedented length for an emergency session, and the gravity of the situation had been evident in the faces of the military's highest-ranking officers as they processed the evidence presented to them. "Thank you, General Hamilton," Colonel Westfield said, her voice steady despite the tension that had built throughout the meeting. "I understand the complexity of what we're asking. The 24-hour deadline stands. We await your decision." As the secure connection terminated, Colonel Westfield turned to face the 3 former Athena operatives who had been observing from just off camera. "They're taking it seriously," she informed them. "General Hamilton has ordered immediate verification of all documentation through independent channels. The Intelligence Committee chairs are being briefed as we speak." "And if verification confirms everything?" Bennett asked, his expression guarded. "Then they'll have to make a choice," the colonel replied. "Either begin a transparent investigation and acknowledge the betrayal publicly, or I release everything," Bennett finished for her. No redactions, no filters, no consideration for political fallout. Major Lewis, who had been quiet throughout much of the proceedings, finally spoke. "Do you think they'll do the right thing?" Colonel Westfield considered the question carefully. General Hamilton is a man of integrity. He wasn't part of the original conspiracy. He was commanding troops in Afghanistan when Athena was disbanded, but the political pressure will be enormous. Acknowledging this betrayal means admitting that high-ranking officials sacrificed their own operatives for political convenience. "They sacrificed more than operatives," Olivia pointed out quietly. "They sacrificed the security architecture that could have prevented countless breaches over the past 15 years. How many operations were compromised because Athena's systems weren't in place? How many agents were exposed? How many lives were lost?" The question hung in the air, impossible to answer but devastating in its implications. "What now?" Bennett asked, glancing at his watch. "We have 18 hours until my automated release is triggered." "Now we wait," Colonel Westfield replied, "and we prepare for either outcome." The next hours passed with agonizing slowness. Olivia found herself unable to remain still, pacing the secure conference room where they had relocated to await the Joint Chiefs' response. After 15 years of constant movement, of never staying in one place long enough to be tracked, the enforced stillness felt like a special kind of torture. "You never could sit still during mission prep," Major Lewis observed, watching her from where he sat reviewing additional documentation. "Some things don't change." Olivia paused in her pacing. "I've spent 15 years making sure I never stayed anywhere long enough to become a target. Old habits." "What was it like?" he asked, setting aside the tablet he had been studying. "All those years, living as a ghost." Olivia considered the question, formulating an answer that could possibly convey the reality of her existence since Athena's disbandment. "Lonely," she finally said, "but purposeful. I kept moving, kept watching, kept protecting what I could from the shadows. New identity every few months, no permanent connections, no home base. No friends, no family, no roots," Major Lewis added, understanding in his eyes. "Just the mission." "The mission was all that was left," Olivia confirmed. "After everything else was taken away, the mission remained. Protect the country, even if the country doesn't know you exist." From across the room, Bennett looked up from his own work. "The irony is that we all kept serving in our own ways. Thomas from within the system, You from the shadows, me by gathering evidence and planning for this moment. Different methods, same fundamental loyalty. Loyalty to what? Olivia challenged. Not to the people who betrayed us. To the ideal, Bennett replied without hesitation. To what America is supposed to be, not what certain individuals turned it into. I never stopped believing in that, even when I was planning to expose its failures. The conversation was interrupted as Colonel Westfield entered the room, her expression giving nothing away. General Hamilton is arriving in 30 minutes, she announced. He's coming personally, with minimal staff. Whatever the decision, he's delivering it face to face. The atmosphere in the room immediately shifted, tension ratcheting higher as the moment of truth approached. For Olivia, who had lived with uncertainty for 15 years, this defined endpoint felt almost surreal, a countdown to a resolution she had never truly believed would come. As they prepared for the general's arrival, Olivia found herself standing beside Bennett near the room's single window, which overlooked the base's central parade ground. Do you regret it? She asked quietly. Any of it? Bennett considered the question with the seriousness it deserved. I regret that it came to this. I regret not finding another way. But I don't regret seeking justice for what was done to us. And after? Olivia pressed. If the truth comes out, if acknowledgement happens, what then? For you? A shadow of uncertainty crossed Bennett's face. I haven't thought much beyond this moment. For 15 years, this has been my purpose. Gathering evidence, building the case, preparing for disclosure. I'm not sure who I am without that mission. I understand, Olivia said, and she truly did. The mission had defined her existence as well, had given shape and meaning to years spent in isolation. The prospect of life after mission completion was as terrifying as it was liberating. Perhaps, Bennett suggested with unexpected gentleness, we all get to find out who we might have been if Athena hadn't ended the way it did. The arrival of General Hamilton's helicopter interrupted their conversation. They watched from the window as the aircraft touched down on the base's landing pad, its rotors stirring up dust that swirled in the late afternoon sunlight. The general emerged, flanked by 2 aides, a notably small entourage for the chairman of the Joint Chiefs. This is it, Olivia said, more to herself than to Bennett. 15 years coming to a head in the next few minutes. General Hamilton was escorted directly to their secure conference room, arriving with the brisk efficiency that had characterized his 40-year military career. At 62, he carried himself with the straight-backed posture of someone who had never forgotten his early training, his weathered face bearing the lines of countless difficult decisions. No one sat as he entered the room. This wasn't a normal briefing or a standard chain of command interaction. This was a moment of reckoning that transcended normal military protocol. Colonel Westfield, the general acknowledged with a nod. His gaze moved to each of the Athena operatives in turn, lingering particularly on Olivia. Miss Carter, it seems the reports of your death were greatly exaggerated. A common administrative error, apparently, Olivia replied, her tone carefully neutral. The general's expression remained impassive, but something like respect flickered in his eyes. Indeed. He placed a secure briefcase on the conference table and addressed the room. What I'm about to share comes directly from an emergency session of the Joint Chiefs, with consultation from the Intelligence Committee leadership. The verification process for the evidence you provided is ongoing, but preliminary authentication confirms its legitimacy. He opened the briefcase and removed a sealed folder bearing the highest security classification markings. This is difficult, so I'll be direct. The Joint Chiefs have unanimously agreed that the betrayal of Athena Division represents a fundamental violation of military ethics and constitutional principles. We are prepared to acknowledge this publicly and to initiate a full investigation with complete transparency. The declaration hung in the air for a moment, its implications slowly sinking in. After 15 years of secrecy, of lives lived in shadows, of truth buried beneath layers of classification and denial, acknowledgement was finally coming. There are conditions, the general continued, his tone making it clear that these were non-negotiable. First, we require a 72-hour preparation period before public disclosure. Not to bury anything, he added quickly, seeing Bennett's expression darken, but to ensure the safety of any currently deployed operatives who might be affected by the revelation. Reasonable, Bennett conceded after a moment. As long as my evidence remains secure during that time, General Hamilton nodded. Second, the disclosure will happen through proper channels, congressional testimony, formal military statements, and regulated media engagement. No uncontrolled dump of classified material that could endanger ongoing operations. Also reasonable, Olivia agreed. The goal was always justice, not chaos. Finally, the general said, his gaze moving between the three Athena operatives, we want you involved in the process. Not as scapegoats or as accusers, but as expert witnesses who can help us understand exactly what happened and how to ensure it never happens again. This means formal reinstatement, with full restoration of rank, benefits, and service records. This final condition was unexpected, a recognition of their service that went beyond mere acknowledgement. For Olivia, who had lived without official identity for 15 years, the prospect of reinstatement, of having her existence formally recognized again, was almost overwhelming. Why? She asked, needing to understand the motivation behind this offer. Why not just acknowledge the wrong and move on? General Hamilton's expression softened slightly. Because the military failed you. Because the country failed you. And because we need people like you, people of integrity who continued to serve even when betrayed, to help rebuild what was broken. He turned to Colonel Westfield. The official paperwork is being processed as we speak. As of 08:00 tomorrow morning, all three former Athena operatives will be formally reinstated with appropriate security clearances and status. The colonel acknowledged the order with a crisp nod, but the subtle smile on her face betrayed her satisfaction with this outcome. Mr. Bennett, the general continued, your evidence will be secured in a special repository with triple authentication protocols. Only you and designated investigators will have access. As a show of good faith, you will retain control of your automated release system, though we trust it won't be necessary to activate it. Bennett studied the general's face, searching for any sign of deception or manipulation. Apparently finding none, he nodded slowly. Agreed. I'll delay the release for 72 hours, with the understanding that if there's any attempt to suppress or minimize what happened, full disclosure still occurs. Understood and accepted, General Hamilton replied with the gravity of someone making a binding commitment. As the details were finalized and the necessary documents signed, Olivia found herself standing somewhat apart from the proceedings, processing the seismic shift in her reality. After 15 years of existing in the spaces between official records, of being effectively invisible to the system she had continued to serve, she was about to step back into the light. The implications were both exhilarating and terrifying. Who was Olivia Carter without the mission that had defined her for so long? What did it mean to reclaim an identity that had been officially erased? How did one rebuild a life after 15 years of purposeful non-existence? Overwhelmed? Major Lewis asked quietly, coming to stand beside her. Adjusting, Olivia replied. 15 years is a long time to be a ghost. I'm not sure I remember how to be anything else. You were more than your mission, Olivia, he reminded her gently. Before Athena, before all of this, you were a person with dreams, with plans. Those things might have been buried, but they weren't destroyed. The conversation around the conference table was concluding, arrangements finalized for the carefully managed disclosure that would begin in 72 hours. As General Hamilton prepared to depart, he approached Olivia directly. Miss Carter, he said, his voice carrying the weight of his authority, what was done to you and your colleagues was unforgivable. No official acknowledgement can ever fully restore what was taken, but I want you to know that your service, all of it, including the years spent in the shadows, has not gone unrecognized. He extended his hand, not the formal gesture of a superior to a subordinate, but the respectful acknowledgement of one professional to another. Welcome back from the dead, Operative 37. Olivia accepted the handshake, feeling the strange sensation of her past and present colliding in this simple human contact. Thank you, General, though I never really left. No, he agreed with unexpected insight. You didn't. And that's why we need you now more than ever. After the general's departure, Colonel Westfield approached the three former Athena operatives. The next 72 hours will be intense. Preparations for disclosure, debriefings, formal reinstatement procedures. I suggest you all get some rest while you can. As Bennett and Major Lewis nodded their agreement, Olivia found herself hesitating. Colonel, if it's all the same to you, I'd prefer not to stay on base tonight. Understanding flickered in the colonel's eyes. 15 years of constant movement makes it hard to stay in one place, doesn't it? Old habits, Olivia admitted. Where will you go? Bennett asked, genuine concern in his voice. Olivia glanced toward the window, toward the world beyond the base perimeter. There's a ridge about 5 miles east of here. Good vantage point, clear sight lines. I've spent more nights under the stars than under roofs these past 15 years. One more won't make a difference. Colonel Westfield studied her for a moment, then nodded. I'll authorize a temporary absence. But I need your word that you'll return by 0700 tomorrow for the formal reinstatement. You have it, Olivia assured her. 15 years as a ghost doesn't end overnight. I just need some time to transition. As darkness fell over Fort Bradley, Olivia made her way to the ridge she had mentioned, carrying only a small backpack with essential supplies, a habit formed through years of always being ready to move at a moment's notice. The night was clear, the stars brilliantly visible above the silhouette of distant mountains. She established a small camp with the practiced efficiency of someone who had done so countless times before. No tent, just a ground tarp, a lightweight sleeping bag, and a careful arrangement of natural cover that would break up her outline from any distance. Sitting with her back against a weather-worn boulder, Olivia looked down at the lights of the military base spread out below, a constellation of human activity, of purpose and structure, of everything she had both protected and remained apart from for 15 years. Tomorrow she would formally rejoin that world. Her name would be recorded in official databases again. Her service would be acknowledged. Her existence would become a matter of record rather than a carefully maintained secret. The prospect was both liberating and disorienting. For 15 years, anonymity had been her armor, transience her strategy, isolation her reality. What would it mean to set those things aside? Who was Olivia Carter, beyond the mission that had consumed her adult life? As she contemplated these questions, the soft crunch of approaching footsteps alerted her to someone's presence. Her hand moved instinctively to the small firearm concealed at her ankle. Another habit formed through years of constant vigilance. "It's just me," came Bennett's voice from the darkness. "I thought you might want company." Olivia relaxed slightly but didn't remove her hand from the weapon. "How did you find me?" Bennett emerged into the small clearing where she had made her camp, his silhouette familiar despite the years that had passed since they had last stood under the same stars. "You always did prefer elevated positions with clear sight lines in all directions," he replied with a hint of amusement. "Some patterns don't change, even after 15 years." He stopped at a respectful distance, clearly aware of the boundaries established by years of solitary existence. "May I join you?" After a moment's consideration, Olivia nodded, gesturing to a spot nearby. Bennett settled himself on the ground, his movements carrying the same economical precision that had characterized his work in Athena Division. For a while they sat in companionable silence, two ghosts contemplating their imminent return to the land of the living. "Are you ready for tomorrow?" Bennett finally asked. "Are any of us?" Olivia countered. "We've been defined by absence for so long. Being officially present again. It's a fundamental shift in identity." Bennett nodded, understanding perfectly. "For 15 years, I've been working toward a single goal, exposing the truth, securing justice for what was done to us. Now that it's actually happening, I find myself wondering what comes next." "You could retire," Olivia suggested. "Take the back pay and benefits that will come with reinstatement, find a quiet place somewhere, try to build a normal life." "Could you?" Bennett challenged gently. "After everything you've seen, everything you've done, could you just walk away into civilian anonymity?" The question struck at the heart of Olivia's own uncertainty. For 15 years she had maintained her skills, her vigilance, her readiness to act when necessary. The thought of simply setting those things aside, of pretending to be an ordinary civilian with ordinary concerns, felt not just impossible but somehow wrong. A betrayal of everything she had become. "No," she admitted finally. "I don't think I could. Whatever happens tomorrow, whatever comes after, I don't think I can stop being who I am now." "Who you became out of necessity," Bennett pointed out. "Who I chose to become," Olivia corrected him. "Every day for 15 years, I made the choice to continue serving, to continue protecting, even when no one knew I existed. That wasn't just necessity. That was purpose." Bennett smiled slightly, recognition in his expression. "The mission became more than an assignment. It became identity." "Yes," Olivia agreed, finding unexpected relief in this shared understanding. "And now the mission is changing, evolving into something new. The question is whether we can evolve with it." They fell silent again, contemplating the lights of the base below and the infinite stars above, caught between the human world they had protected from the shadows and the vast universe that put all human concerns into perspective. "Whatever happens," Bennett said finally, "whatever comes next, at least we're no longer facing it alone. The ghosts of Athena Division are stepping back into the light together." It was a simple observation, but it carried profound meaning for Olivia, who had grown accustomed to absolute solitude, to making every decision and facing every challenge without support or companionship. The prospect of reconnection, of shared purpose with others who truly understood her experience, represented a kind of homecoming she had never expected to find. "Together," she echoed, the word feeling strange yet somehow right on her lips. "I think I could get used to that again." As dawn broke over Fort Bradley the next morning, 3 figures approached the main gate, not from official transportation but on foot, walking side by side with the synchronized stride of people who had once moved as a single unit in the field. The guards at the checkpoint straightened as they recognized Colonel Westfield, who had come personally to escort the former Athena operatives for their formal reinstatement. Unlike Olivia's first approach days earlier, there was no suspicion now, no questioning of identity or purpose. Only the respectful acknowledgement of personnel who understood that something significant was unfolding. As they passed through the security checkpoint, Olivia noticed how differently she was perceived now. Not as a homeless woman with questionable credentials, but as someone whose presence commanded automatic respect. The transformation was not in her. She was still the same person who had approached this gate days earlier, but in how the system now chose to see her. The formal reinstatement ceremony took place in a secure conference room, attended only by General Hamilton, who had returned to oversee the proceedings personally, Colonel Westfield, and a small team of administrative personnel with the highest security clearances. One by one, Olivia, Bennett, and Major Lewis placed their hands on ceremonial documents that officially reversed their status, restoring ranks, security clearances, service records, and, in Olivia's and Bennett's cases, formally acknowledging that they had never actually died. With these signatures, General Hamilton announced as the final documents were processed, "We begin the process of correcting a grave injustice. The full truth about Athena Division will be disclosed to appropriate oversight committees within 72 hours, followed by a carefully managed public acknowledgement." He turned to address the 3 reinstated operatives directly. "Your service, your sacrifice, and your unwavering commitment to this country, even when this country failed you, will no longer go unrecognized. Welcome home." For Olivia Carter, who had walked into Fort Bradley Military Base looking like a homeless woman only days earlier, the moment represented more than just official reinstatement or public acknowledgement. It represented the end of 15 years in the wilderness and the beginning of something new, a future where her skills, her experience, and her unique perspective would be valued rather than erased. The homeless woman who had been detained at the checkpoint was now recognized for what she had always been, a dedicated operative who had continued to serve when service meant sacrifice without recognition, who had protected a system that had betrayed her, who had maintained her integrity when abandoning it would have been the easier choice. As she signed her name to the final document, watching as her signature transformed her officially from ghost to recognized servant of her country, Olivia felt a sense of completion that had eluded her for 15 years. The circle that had begun with betrayal and erasure was closing with acknowledgement and restoration. But more importantly, a new circle was beginning, one defined not by shadows and isolation, but by purpose and connection, by the opportunity to serve openly rather than from the periphery, by the chance to help rebuild what had been broken rather than merely preserving what remained. The ghost had stepped fully into the light, and in that light, Olivia Carter would forge a new path, not forgetting who she had been during those 15 years in the wilderness, but integrating that hard-won wisdom into whatever came next. Some heroes emerge from shadows, their greatest service rendered when no one is watching. But sometimes those shadows recede, and the world finally sees what was always there: unwavering commitment, unbreakable integrity, and the quiet courage to stand guard when standing means standing alone. For the woman who had walked into Fort Bradley looking homeless but left as its savior, the journey had come full circle. The generals had recognized her not just for who she appeared to be, but for who she had always been: a guardian who had never abandoned her post, even when her post had abandoned her. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.